Hello and welcome back to the Awe Podcast. So today we're talking about belonging and friendship.
Belonging and friendship.
How are we going to connect these two, Josh?
I think we've been intentional about how we're building this season. We're going to be talking about family and work and those kind of things. But one of the core concepts, right, is we got to know what connection is. So we talked about belonging and connection last episode, and now we're diving into belonging and friendship, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what lasting connection, that's what happens when we have lasting connection, right? Is friendships build. And we need to have those in family and we need to have those in work and things like that too, right? So we're kind of building on this. Yeah. And, we're using, some botany terms today as our guests will talk about.
Yeah. An area we're not well versed in.
Right. We are not botanists.
Admittedly. Yeah.
Right. Right. So we're going to talk about what is a blossoming friendship.
I can think of recently for me, I have come into this friendship circle of women, and I was grateful enough to have somebody that I met in my life who kind of brought me in. And I think initially when it started to blossom, if you will, I wasn't even aware of it. And then so once I kind of caught on that, hey, that's what's happening. This is growing. This is changing. There's some energy here. Mm-hmm. All of those things were happening, like the fun and the excitement and the energy. And, but I really, really did ultimately want to make a good impression, right? I wanted them to like me. So I wanted them to know about maybe the best parts of me. And sometimes the best parts of us that we believe are the best parts of us anyway, aren't necessarily going to make a good impression. And so in terms of blossoming, it's like, what am I going to put up front to help this continue and grow? Right.
Yeah. We put our best foot forward, right? We think of dating, meeting new people, all those kind of things. We want to put our best foot forward. I can remember when my wife and I moved down to Missouri, and we knew each other. That's it, right? And didn't have friends for the longest time, And I remember going to this geology class of all places, and I'm sitting I usually sat in the same place because I was in a creature of habit, and I'm sitting here, and then this other guy always sat next to me, and one day he just kind of said, "Hey, dude, what's up?" right? And so we started talking, and we found out we had to go to the same parking lot to catch the same bus to go to our places or what. So we started walking there, and we still talk about that class today. Him and I do, and we're long distance, right? So we don't have as much contact today, but when we meet up, it's an instant connection because we share similar interests, right? Right. But I just remember sitting in that class in all randomness, right? "What's up, dude?" I just remember. And then he would always fall asleep in class and he would snore. And our professor, it was geology. And the thing we remember about that class is he would say, "Basalt, basalt, basalt." Like it was this epiphany that he had. I don't know. It was interesting, but man, that was a beautiful connection. And that was one experience. And then the other friend that I had met down in Missouri, I had a car at the time that the only way I could tell how much gas I had left was if I counted the miles. Mm-hmm. And so Columbia, Missouri is a lot more hilly than Iowa. So I ran out of gas on the side of the road, and my wife had made a connection, and she called this friend and like, "Hey, guess what? I just know you for 2 days, but we're out of gas, right? We need help. Please. And so then they come over, and then her husband had gotten out of the car, so it was one of the other people that were married in school at the time, which was very rare. And, of course, as a guy, with all the stereotypes out there, I'm like, yeah, I'm a guy that just ran out of gas. How crazy is this? And he steps out of the car, and he's like, "So you're the one that's out of gas, huh?" Right?
First impression.
Right. First impression. But man, I've never laughed so hard in my life with this guy. I can remember not, if we were drinking beer or whatever it was, and we were trying to have some fun, the first 6 months I knew him, I think there was at least one incident a night where I would spit out my drink everywhere because I was laughing so hard.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would laugh with me. So when I made the biggest fools out of myself, they were there with me.
Absolutely.
And they continued, right? It was that two-way street. Our guest talks about that.
Yes.
It needs to come from both sides, and we would text each other. And that's what I think of a blossoming friendship, right? We're trying to put our best foot forward. We slip and fall sometimes,
Absolutely.
but they stay there.
When we say a friendship in full blossom, that just makes me think of this image of you, spitting your drink out and them laughing with you. And, that's a friendship that's in full blossom. 'Cause
Right,
you're all
right.
laughing together, right? They're not
That's
laughing
true.
at you. They're laughing with you. Everybody
Right.
is getting joy out of that scenario, which our guest also speaks to is the joy that comes into these connections. And, the other thing I think of as, a woman is, when a friendship is in full blossom for me, I think of, I'm going to ask them, hey, what are you going to wear to this event, right? So we're all kind of connecting on that level. And, and I know that may seem silly, but for me, that's when I know, right? When I am now asking for the opinions or the ideas or the support, if you will, thoughts of those others that I'm connecting with.
Yeah, is that why you asked me what I want to wear so often?
It is, you see?
Okay.
We're blossom. We're in full blossom.
We have blossomed, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, I knew there was a sign somewhere in here, right? Yeah, and it's easy to just feel connection, right, with people who are really good friends, and of course it's a roller coaster ride, but we,
Absolutely.
as we become friends, trust builds through, like I would say, vulnerability experiments. And experiments is the wrong word there, but you be vulnerable and the person holds it, and you be a little more vulnerable and the person holds it and gives support, right? And then we know, like, the connection's becoming something that's really beautiful. But maintaining a friendship takes work, right?
It does.
It takes work. It means that I need to show up every day as myself and let people know when I'm not myself.
Right. And when I think of maintenance in terms of friendships and relationships, right? Authenticity, life, and support, because life happens, right? And when that happens, you're going to be who you are. You respond the way that you've responded, and you react the way that you do. And within terms of a friendship, right? Your discussion tends to become real, right? And so, when those first impressions in that initial stage, right? That's not where you are, right? You're not in that stage. You're not asking, what are you going to wear? Now we're talking about something that's real, and, talk about many things that you're experiencing, and you do so without giving importance to what they're wearing or how they look, right? That's not important when you're maintaining that connection. It's withstanding tough times, and this occurs during that time. And this is when you know that there is that connection. It's almost as an intimacy during maintenance, right? And maintenance doesn't sound fun, like like we're blossoming and,
Right.
and we're in bloom and having all this
Yeah,
fun. But
yeah.
maintenance is really important because it is the continuity of all of those things that brought you together.
Right. I can think of every night when I get home, because, relationships, friendships, are the same when, with my spouse at home too. A lot of times at night we'll sit in two chairs next to each other and we'll be doing our thing, whether it's reading a book or watching a show or whatever it is, but we're not talking to each other, but we're there with each other, right?
Right.
And I think that's what maintenance is, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be excitement, full bloom, right?
Right.
That's impossible to maintain.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's exhausting.
Yes, it's exhausting. So sometimes we just need to be with each other, right? And hey, that's okay, right?
Yep.
And that's the way it is with friends too.
Yeah. And sometimes that means that your hair's sticking up, you're in your robe, right? You haven't brushed your teeth yet, right? So that's maintenance, right? That's all those things. And just being in that space. Yes. Yeah. And, I want to talk about the friendship dynamic between girls and women. Can we say competitive and catty? And those are not necessarily great terms. And not all friendships are like that. So I'm not saying that this should be the way that we categorize those dynamics, but it's out there, it's in the world. And as women, right, we have heard this and we've experienced it. Three's a Crowd and Caddy, they come to mind. And I think we, as a society, really, in terms of raising our daughters and things like that, we should address that as early as we can. And our guest is also going to speak to some of that too with her own child rearing. And I also want to throw this out there that, with women, there is that racial dynamic as well. So with white women and then women of color, right, there tends to be some tension sometimes in the relationship and the forming of friendships. And, I don't want to speak to it too much, but I do want to say, if this is something you've experienced or you have questions about, I have a great resource in terms of a book that y'all might want to read. And it's entitled Antagonists, Advocates, and Allies. And this was written by Catrice Jackson, and she goes into great detail about, historical ties between white women and women of color and, the work within, the relationships within the workplace and outside of that. And, so many facets of that and how to work on it, right? And how to recognize where we come as individuals and how we may project that onto others. And again, it's important in how we raise our children and as grown women as well, because it doesn't change when we get older, sadly. This is still a very competitive time of our lives. And so I just thought I would throw that resource out there.
Yeah, it's very true. We get into these competitive natures, and of course, there's many gender stereotypes out there that are attached to friendship. If we think of men, like we joke about men having a thickened brainstem, and we're little dense sometimes to get things through our heads, right? And so that's why we punch each other and I guess avoid each other if we're mad. I don't know, but that's not healthy either. Like learning how to talk with each other. And that's where friendships last the most, is when we can talk to each other. When I can give someone, feedback saying, hey, I think you got to look at yourself, right? Yeah. Because we can only be as good as how well we know our impact, right? So if my impact is negative, but I don't believe it is, I'm going to always be running into this cycle of, I don't know if you'd call it drama, but some of that, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to always measure our impact, right? All right. You're listening to the All Podcast.
Mara Hall is joining us today. She graduated from Briarcliff, and she double majored in theology and creative writing. Mara is a master of connection and communication. She is creative, authentic, and empowering. She understands friendship from two sides and uses this knowledge to create empowerment and, most importantly, belonging. She is the communications director for WITCC and is often referred to as the local press secretary. She maintains a big role while transitioning into a new role and handles it with grace and compassion. Welcome to All, Mara.
Okay, thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Who feels special? It's me.
Yay.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. So I'm going to go right at it and just ask you, what does the blossoming of a friendship feel like?
Well, okay, you guys, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I am really weird about how I make friends, okay? And it works for me, okay? And I think many people should take this method. What happens is I meet someone, I like them, and then I say, let's be friends. I
Just
literally
like that.
say that.
Yes.
I say, let's be friends. Or we're going to be best friends.
Right.
And it's really worked out for me, okay? Because some of my best friends, I recognized the greatness in them. And I wanted it. I wanted it in my life.
There you go.
Yes.
I mean, it's worked for me. I mean, making friends is really hard for some people.
It is.
And I value friendship a lot because I grew up not having friends. Okay. We're just going to hit it hard. Nobody liked me. because I was a poor little girl at a private school. And so like when I got to college, I was ready to make friends, and it was so exciting to like not have the stigma of a small town behind you. And so I just don't take it for granted. And I say, hey, I like you. Let's be friends.
Yeah.
So that's the blossoming of a friendship for me.
Right.
That's awesome.
And out there, we have many listeners who would question, like, how do I make a friend, especially as an adult, right? Because it becomes harder when we're adults. And, I think when we're younger, we don't think about it like, let's be friends, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think it's that simple.
Yeah.
Let's be friends.
Let's be friends.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah, I know it's real simple, but that's it. That's my method.
And it works.
It works.
Right.
It works. Or I will just overwhelm you with compliments. I will overwhelm you with compliments, and you will be like, wow, I like her. And then all of a sudden I'm around a lot.
That's how it happened.
That's how it happened with you guys.
With us, yes.
Really? Yes.
And now I'm on your podcast.
It's blossomed
I wore you
beautifully.
down.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Friendships seem like really hard. And they have a season, right? Like that's a cliche, but it's true. That the people you were friends with in high school, in college, postgraduate, it's all different, and it's a part of like your story. And maybe you move away, and your idea of friendship is a text here or there, and that's enough. Mm-hmm. But when you're with that person, it's just like you never left them. Like there's so many ways of what a friendship can be and mean. Might just be a smile in the hallway. Depends on what you need.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's a barrier too. As adults, we have all these expectations of what a friendship will be. So we wanted to kind of compare and contrast in this segment, right? So the opposite of a blossoming friendship is one that's declining, or and there's feelings associated with that, or even like not even having a blossoming friendship. So talk a little bit about that.
This is my struggle. How did you guys know? I have a really hard time letting friends go, especially like when they're not serving the purpose anymore. I have a really hard time. Like whether they moved away and it's just not working anymore, and the connection just isn't the same, or maybe your ideals have changed in ways that that are really important and are hard to get over. Like that I think has happened to a lot of people recently. The world is so divisive, and there are things that people care a lot about and are vocal about, and maybe just don't fit anymore. And so maybe you have to let those people go. It's so hard. I struggle. I'm really terrible at it. I try to let things go, and then I'll still send a text like a month later and be like, how are you?
Yeah.
I still care about you, even though this is hard for me. Just even a Snapchat. I'm terrible at letting relationships go. I want to, but I can't. I love them. It's too hard.
And you did a great job there of talking about how sometimes fostering these relationships, depending on your ideals and where you are in life, may be changing. And so how does authenticity then come into friendships? How do you bring that in, and how do you decide when to let it go? Because the authenticity of who you are is ultimately more important than that.
Yeah. So I would say the strongest friendships I have are the ones that are the most authentic, right? I mean, your whole podcast, right? That bring well-being to me, that are, oh my gosh, what's the E? Empowering me. There we go. I panicked. Yes. You guys get it on the spot. But the most healthy friendships that I have are where I am my full true self, where I can say and trust that person to receive me and the way I'm feeling, whether it is full of joy, excitement, or even those darker parts of ourselves that like are sad and mad or frustrated, that I can just be honest and say, I can't meet you where you are today. And that person's like, I'll meet you where you are then. What do you need? You know?
Yeah.
So those are my most healthy friendships, and the ones that I'm absolutely the most grateful for. But they take work. So like if I'm willing to be authentic, they need to be authentic too. And that's what makes it safe, is that you know that you both have each other in a way that's, I don't know, incomparable.
As a woman navigating this friendship territory, right, often women hear, or we talk about, right, that kind of negative connotation that comes with it, right? We're catty, three's a crowd, those types of things. And as a woman, how do you navigate friendships with those kind of concepts and terms floating around?
I haven't had to, because I will say, and maybe I just know how to curate a friendship, but the women that I surround myself with are just so excellent, and like all you want is excellence for each other. And so if there's something that's catty, it's not within that friendship circle. I can say that. I know that there is that there, like there is something there 100%, but I am thankful to say that the immediate women surrounding me are so encouraging, and I love to call a queen, like I'm surrounded by queens. And I just love them. But that's not to say that there isn't that out there. But thankfully, the people that I have immediately surrounding me are not that way. And I guess when I run into it, it's outside of the friendship circle. And that's where the friendship circle comes in. We're like, what do I do? And a darling friend of mine told me that clear is kind, and that's something I struggle with, but it's best to be clear. So like if that person is not treating you the way it should be, or something you need to be more honest, then clear is kind.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
And would you say this was the same for you as a young girl? I know you kind of alluded to this being different than in your younger years, but
so I grew up in a very small town in Nebraska. I went to a private Catholic school, and it was like very competitive. And you guys, I have always thought I was hilarious. Okay. Like you are. Thank you.
Let's validate that.
I wanted. Thank you. I just always thought I was so funny. So like I couldn't compete. Like I couldn't be blonde. I couldn't be a cheerleader. I couldn't be that, but I could be like the funny girl. So I like had that position for myself. But there was always such a movie trope, with the popular girls, and it couldn't be. My hometown couldn't be more of that. So, it was just full of cattiness. And that's why leaving it was such a breath of fresh air to me. I thought Sioux City was a metropolis. Okay. I was amazed. Okay. When I saw diversity of any kind at Briar Cliff. Okay. Which is not very, okay. You might have to edit that out, but it's not very diverse. Okay. And so like, what a world. I was so excited to just be outside of that looking down, and that I could be myself, and that there were other people like me. It was really exciting. Various economic states.
Right. Yes. Very liberating and freeing when we're in that moment, when we can be our authentic selves. Yeah.
Yes. Which looking back, it's like it wasn't even that big of a change. Do you know what I mean? But it felt monstrous to me at the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that speaks volumes to how big of a moment it is for us, right? Looking back, it doesn't seem like it, but it was. It was. Yeah. So when we build friendships, they're blossoming friendships, part of maintaining a friendship takes work, right?
It does.
What kind of work do we need to put in to maintain friendships?
Well, I always just feel like it's a two-way street. A lot of the friendships that fail are ones that you put everything into and you get nothing back. And it's not like, I don't know, it's not like, oh, I'm buying you lunch one day, you have to buy me lunch next day. But it's like, you're listening, and not over talking, which is something I do unfortunately need to work on. I definitely always talk over people, and I need to work on it. But I know that because a friend told me that I need to work on it.
Yeah, and you heard it.
It's not honesty, right? But it wasn't in a way that was like terrible. It's that it was a way that I needed to receive and to better how I hear people. But yeah, I just think that it's a two-way street when it comes to friendship, and that you carry the load when they can't, and they do the same for you, because unfortunately it's not all roses and I don't know, other pretty flowers out there.
Right. Other pretty flowers, yes, there's many.
I am not a botanist, but like, like things get so hard. So like friendship isn't just when things are nice.
Right.
And those are great moments too, that you get to share that. But when there's tragedy and you need someone to not say it was supposed to happen, and that person knows not to say that they that you just need them to be there.
Yeah.
Or you have a baby and they know that you're not ready to see them, and that's okay, and that's not personal. There's stuff like that, like just carrying each other through tough times, and then sharing the joy when it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you tell a listener who feels that they have no friends?
That's tough, because I know some people who feel like it's hard to make friends. And I'm always like, you just need to ask.
Be my friend.
I know it's so oversimplified. And I also know I am an extrovert. Okay. Like I know that. So things feel different for me than somebody who might be introverted. And so like, I always like, well, have you ever asked someone? Like go somewhere. Like if you're comfortable, think of something you're interested in and start a hobby. And then like you go to a pottery class at the art center, and then all of a sudden there's someone next to you who's struggling with the clay just as much as you are. And you can say, wow, this clay, am I right? And then, you find something that you can relate to, something you're interested in. There's always something. Go to a cooking class, things like there's always, as long as you're comfortable. See, this is me being an extrovert. Go out, do something. But there's, there's online ways too that people can be comfortable to find something that you feel passionate about, and then find others who share it. Like that's the easiest way, I think. Love education, love talking to people. Work at a community college, and then make everybody be your friend.
There you go. Just say, be my friend, right?
Easy.
The community is yours. Yeah,
right.
At your fingertips.
Right. I think one of the most hardest things about friendship is that ability to be vulnerable that you spoke to a little bit there, right?
Yeah.
And I think people have tried making friends and have been, not successful a lot of times in making those friends. And so being vulnerable puts them in, it's a scary place.
It is.
So what do you say?
Okay, so I have a 4-year-old.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you guys know that I love a gentle parenting tip. And one of the things, I was so nervous for her to start going to a daycare, because she got to stay with my mother-in-law for a while. And so I was so nervous. And then she just started preschool, and I was like, ooh, I had such a bad school experience. Like I'm totally projecting my anxieties onto her. And so, she might come back and say, this person didn't like me today. And I'll say, you know what? That's okay. Not everybody has to like you.
Yeah.
That's okay. But we have to respect everybody. Right. And so those are the things I think about, that it's okay that maybe you don't fit with everybody. That's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to fit in a square hole, right? If you're a triangle, like you will eventually find the place that you fit, but it does not have to be everything and everyone.
Right.
So it's
right.
just about finding what's right, I think.
Yeah.
And we've had a running theme with those that we've interviewed this season, what you just touched on in terms of it's okay to not fit into whatever box somebody's trying to put you into. We've really heard that quite a bit. And I think it's so empowering because ultimately there are these messages all the time within society that tell us we should fit and that maybe there's something wrong with us if we don't. And to hear that that is how you are empowering your daughter, right, at this very young age, just that's inspiring to me.
That's what I wish somebody would have said to me.
Absolutely.
Like that's what you always want, is a better life for your children. And those are the things I've always been frustrated with. Like, why is the temperature sent to a certain degree at an office? Because that's what a man in a 3-piece suit is comfortable at, not necessarily a woman, right? So there's this whole world where you are trying to gain traction that might not be set for you.
Absolutely.
And you might have to try and fit a certain way or behave a certain way. Like I am a light shining personality. Like I can be I can be serious if I need to, but I don't have to be a successful person in a workplace. Like I can still be a joyful, fun person and be successful and make friends and not fit what a stereotype of a successful person is.
Right. Wow. There's spaces. There's spaces for everybody.
Yeah, and that's great.
And challenge it, right? And that's okay to challenge it. To be yourself, to be your authentic self.
And you'll find somebody. Like if we bring it back to friendship, you'll find somebody who likes that, who wants to be around you for who you are. There's billions of people on this world, you know. There's more than one common interest in there, I promise.
Yes. All right, and that's all for today. Join us next week as we discuss belonging and family.
This is Mara Hall, and I wish you to stay authentic, well, and empowered.